and welcome people to my program today, and as always we've got a very exciting program. Hope some of you are aware, but it is Fraud Prevention Week this week, and we have in the studios with us James Jones, who's Head of Consumer Affairs from Experian, and today we'll be talking about credit scoring and all your questions around credit reports and stuff. So it's really important that we get a grip on this subject. So welcome, James.
Hi.
How are you?
Very good, thank you.
Thank you for coming into the studio today.
Pleasure.
So let's just talk about who you are and what your role is at Experian.
Okay, so I work for Experian, which operates one of the UK's 3 main credit reference agencies. I'm Head of Consumer Affairs, so it's my job to come on programmes like this and explain how it all works. So a credit reference agency is basically an organisation that enables the banks and other lenders to share, with your permission, information about your credit, so that when you want to apply for a new credit agreement, you can give the new lender permission to actually come to us and to see what sort of customer you're likely to be.
So right, people, what we mean by that is, so if you've ever applied for, like, say, a phone contract, or we like some of these deals like, say, DFS or Argos, buy now, pay later, and they ask your permission to do a credit score, and then we all realise, to our shock and horror, the computer says no. And the assistant often turns around and says, well, we can't offer you these credit terms, unfortunately. So you ask why, what's the problem? And then they turn around and say, well, you need to go and check your credit report. And at that moment, it comes as quite a big shock to a lot of people, and they wonder, what's that? Who do we turn to? What is a credit report? What is a credit score? So James, for all our viewers at home, what do we mean by credit scores for individuals who get stuck in a situation where they've never heard about what a credit reference agency is, and all of a sudden their first encounter is when they've actually been turned down, for an item that they really like in the high street? Yeah.
Well, that's a common scenario that many people find themselves in, which is why we're working hard to get out there and explain to the world really how we work and what information we hold for you, how you can come and look at it. But yeah, many people only really get into it when things have gone wrong and when credit's been refused. So it's important that you maybe take some time just to kind of get to grips with how it works, and maybe have a look at your credit report so you can start to familiarise yourself with what's on there, and maybe opportunities to improve it.
Yeah, about 40% of the UK population do think that they have a poor credit rating. And not that this is something I prepared earlier, but this is something that I did prepare a lot earlier. And this right over here has my name on it, and it is my credit score. And I've actually taken a lot of time to make sure that it comes into this section, the excellent section. It's taken a lot of hard work, and depending on your score. So, James, could you just explain this report of mine to our viewers? Because obviously I am, logged in with Experian. I've been doing this for quite a number of years, and it's surprising that only 4% of the UK population actually check their, credit reports monthly. And there's a lot of ramifications as well as a lot of positive notes as to having, a sheet like this. And really what we're talking about is this number down here, and is this that kind of like underpin the decisions that lenders make about your financial health, about your bank account, like say, so if you have any missed payments, late payments, defaults, county court judgments, in the UK this does go very much against you. So James, if you could just talk our viewers through something like this, what this means, because I'm sure that for some of them this might be the first time they're actually looking at something like this. So if I just pass this over, and if you could just explain. Okay.
Well, can I just start by saying congratulations. This is an excellent score. So what we've done is, if you come to us to get hold of a copy of your credit report, you can look at the actual data, so the information about the credit that you've used in the past 6 years is generally how long we keep the information for. But many people have done that in the past and then come back to us and said, well, what does it all mean? How is this information going to affect whether I can get credit or not? So we've relatively recently developed the Experian credit score. So it gives you a really good idea what the impact of your credit report information is likely to be if you then go and apply for a mortgage or a loan or a credit card or anything like that. So we can see here this is a very high credit score. It works on a scale of 0 to 999, so this is almost as high as you can get, which is brilliant. And we put you in the excellent category. So what this basically says is your credit history is in a really good situation at the moment, and if you apply for credit, then this is going to help you, this is going to support your cause.
But unfortunately, a lot of people aren't as lucky as I've been. I've had to work on these people, it's taken me a while to get here. But what do people do who are perhaps, if you're on fair, by the way, you can't get a mobile phone on contract, and we're in a recession. So if you do have missed payments, late payments, you are actually going to find yourself in a lot of difficulties. So what kind of tips can you give our viewers? What should they be doing to actually move themselves up? And
well, I mean, the first stepping stone really is to come to us and get hold of a copy of your credit report so you can see exactly what information's on there.
Does everybody have a credit report? Every person in the UK have one? Is that just automatic, a bit like a birth certificate or something?
Well, we don't hold credit reports on people per se, but we produce reports. So if a lender gets your permission to come to us and access data, then we will produce a credit report on you for the lender, and likewise if you come to us and ask us for a copy, we'll search the database and produce a report. It may actually have nothing on, it's still a report. So that's sort of how it works. Of course, most people do have lots of information on there because many organisations, the banks, the mobile phone companies, other lenders, the payday loan firms, it's quite a wide-ranging thing, do share data every month about the credit their customers have and how it's being repaid. So most people do have quite a lot of information on their credit reports.
Is this agencies like, say, banks and credit cards, do they actually pass our information on to you? Is that how you acquire it? How do you acquire our information?
Yeah, so what happens is when you apply for credit, you will give the lender permission to carry out a credit check to see what information's on your credit report already, to help them decide whether they want you as a new customer. But also you will give them permission, if they do take you on as a new customer, to then start registering information every month on what credit you have and how you're managing it, and that information, as we see here, is kind of forms a body of evidence, if you like, so that every time you then approach a new lender, they have this information. They can see how reliable you've been in the past, and importantly, what credit you have already.
So what do people do? What are the common mistakes that people are actually making that's giving them an adverse credit score in that sense? Well, what are they doing wrong?
Well, there are quite a lot really, but some of the most common ones are, for instance, not registering on the electoral roll. So in the UK, we have the electoral roll primarily put together for voting in elections. And we use that, we put that information on credit reports so banks and other lenders can use it to help check your name and address when you apply for credit. And so it can be linked to credit risk, so it can affect your credit score. So if you are eligible to register to vote while you're living here or while you're visiting, if you're not here for very long, then we'd encourage you to do that, because that can affect credit scoring, and not everyone knows that, and not everyone does that. The other one really is missing payments, because of course that is the basics in terms of building up a credit record.
So is this true? Every time you miss a payment, or like say you're a couple of days late or a week late, how many missed payments do you need for it to seriously affect, or is it just the one time and you've knocked your credit history out? How does that work?
Well, it really depends, because what we do at the credit reference agency is collect this information together, then we can present it to a lender when you next apply for credit. The impact of that information will always depend on that lender and on its own lending policies. There's no blacklist. The information is factual. In fact, I mean, the vast majority of it's positive, because most people pay their credit on time as they're supposed to. But what that any particular piece of information or any particular credit report means to any lender really depends on their policies.
Thank you, people, for the amount of questions you sent through to me on our Facebook. We were just absolutely inundated. And there were lots of questions. A lot of them were stemming from like joint accounts or people living in the same property. So like say as a parent, would then the parent be responsible for their children's debt? How does this work? Whose history is actually on their report? Well,
this is a good one. We were talking about this just earlier. There are, I'm afraid, lots and lots of myths and misconceptions about credit checking. Some of them are based on how things used to work in the past. Some of them, well, we just don't know where they came from, and they're really not helpful. They're not helpful to you at home, helping you understand how it works, and it doesn't really help our reputation either when some people think there's a blacklist and you can be affected by, say, if you move home, the previous occupants of your address. So essentially the way things work now is that these days credit checks are on people, not addresses. And people can only be linked on a credit check if there's evidence of joint credit, a joint financial relationship. So if you take out credit jointly with someone you live with, then you're linking up your two credit reports. But anyone else at the address, past or present, their information is simply not relevant if there's no evidence of a financial connection. So you simply can't be affected by information about the previous occupants or other people you simply live with, unless there's evidence of a financial link.
Right. You know, you have lots and lots of advice on your website, and there's a lot of companies that claim to help and support. So why are there lots of companies stemming up from all over the place saying, we will help you restore your credit history, your credit scores, we're here to help, you know, just pay us X amount of money? So where's all that developed from? Well,
it's interesting, isn't it? I mean, people these days really cherish their credit records. You know, the big smile on your face when you were sort of showing off your great credit score there. It's really important because, you know, these days, you know, many of us rely on credit to kind of help our lives work and kind of buy property and smooth the kind of peaks and troughs in our income. And you know, your credit report affects your credit score, which governs not only what credit you can access, whether you get a yes or a no, but increasingly, certainly in the UK, what you pay for credit as well. So if you're deemed as a high risk, then if a lender gives you credit, they're likely to charge you a bit more for the privilege. So it really does pay to have a great credit score, because it will mean you can get you know, the credit you want, and also you can get it at great rates.
Fantastic people. You know, for me to achieve my credit score, I actually had to work quite hard at it, because like I said, it wasn't always like that. And I actually did it all by myself. Well, not completely by myself, but I did follow all the advice on the Experian website itself. And if you do go onto, if you log on even now onto Experian's website, you'll find Ask James. So how long have you been doing the Ask James questions? Because people can directly ask you questions, isn't it now, directly through your website?
Well, that's just an example of the activities we undertake, really, to reach out and try to help people understand how it all works. So at Experian, we've actually run an education program for 16 years now. And it includes this online advice column. So we get hundreds of questions in, you know, from members of the public every week about credit and about fraud. And we select a handful every week and publish them on the website like a newspaper column, if you like. And we try to pick the most topical questions, maybe the questions that have been reflected in our contact centre, the things that people are asking questions about, so that, you know, we are tackling the issues that people care about.
Do you actually have a face-to-face customer service? Is it all online?
Not as such. I mean, the majority of our contact with the public is through the website, through our contact centre. So we have hundreds of people on the telephone. We can answer emails from people. But we do look for opportunities to do that, because it's great to actually go out and meet people and to kind of do one-to-one credit advice sessions. And actually just this last weekend in London, we had the National Home Improvement Show at the Kensington Olympia, and Experian had a stand there, and we were inviting people to come and talk to us, and we ran constant one-to-one advice clinics, as well as on Saturday lunchtime I actually did a credit masterclass lecture, which was interesting too. So yeah, we certainly look for opportunities to go out and, you know, and meet people and to give personal advice, but most of it, as you say, is probably more online and over the phone.
I mean, the reason why we're having this program today, people, is simply because if you have a poor credit rating and you're looking to set up in business, you're actually going to find difficulties if you want to borrow. And not simply just borrow, your suppliers that you will be getting your, you know, services or products or whatever your suppliers for your business from, some of them may actually run a credit check on you. So if you've got a poor credit score, that will actually affect how you do in business. And that's just not just, you know, limited to you guys borrowing money. So it's really important right now that you actually look into this. It's the single most thing that people actually miss when they think about starting up a business. So that's why we've got this program today, to help you as individuals get through this. And also when you have joint accounts, and joint accounts causes loads and loads of untold misery. So what do people do if they find themselves stuck in a joint account and can't seem to take the other person off the account? What can they do there?
Well, if you're not sure whether you have joint links with someone else in the first place, then what you need to do is to get hold of your credit report, and that will tell you whether there's a record that you're financially linked to someone else. Now, if that link no longer applies, so maybe you were in a relationship that didn't work out, or whether that's a personal relationship or a business relationship, if you tell us, if you come back to us and let us know, we can actually break the link, and that will mean that going forwards your details won't be linked to the other person's. If there is still a link but you're trying to close it down again, that's something we can give people advice on.
Okay, we'll start talking about county court judgments, CCJs as they're otherwise known. So James, can you just explain to our viewers what CCJs are all about? Okay, I'm sorry, asked the wrong question at the wrong time. We're going straight immediately for a prayer break. So please do join me after the prayer break, and I'll continue with my question. So join me after the break. Thank you. Hi people, and welcome back. Today in the studios we've got James Jones, who's Head of Consumer Affairs at Experian, and today's programme is all about credit scores. And you'll obviously know about it because if you go onto the high street, your retail stores, your banks, and if you've been turned down for your overdraft, for your credit card, for your mobile phone, and any other nice items that you would like to pay buy now and pay later on installments, if you've been turned down, you'll be referred on to the credit reference agency. And that's exactly what Experian do. They are that credit reference agency. And we've got them in the studios because we're asking them a whole barrage of questions that came flooding through my Facebook regarding all kinds of questions. And it's all fine and well if you've got a good credit score, but if it's poor, you actually do need to work on it. And there are ways of improving it. So in the middle of a recession, right now, all the suppliers and everybody in the high street are looking for good customers because they also need good business, and if they feel that you're a credit risk in any kind of way, they're just simply going to refuse you. So what we're trying to do with James today is ask him all the questions that will actually help all of us. So this is a business program, and the way we're supporting you today is as an individual, if you're looking to start up in business and your credit score isn't that great, you're actually going to find it very, very difficult, A, to borrow money, or secondly, to actually discuss any kind of installment plan with your suppliers. So generally, most often what people tend to do in business is they'll ask their suppliers, let's just for argument's sake, like say you're in the clothing industry and you're selling like suits, the average suits, tops, bottoms, like you do, and you ask your suppliers to send 100 items through, and you will pay them once the item has sold. In those kind of instances, more than likely you'll have a credit check, and if you've got a low score, more than often they will want cash on delivery. You will not be able to defer that payment. So we were talking about CCJs, county court judgments, and we're just going to ask James what they're about so we can all avoid them, and if we have got some of those against our name, what to actually do about it. So for the benefit of our viewers, James, what is a county court judgment? How does it work? And if people have one, what do they do? Or even if they're in the process of in one, what's your advice?
Well, the golden rule of building a great credit record is paying your bills on time. Now, if you don't pay your bills on time, if these are debts that are owed to organisations like banks and regular lenders that share data through credit reference agencies like Experian, then you'll see late payments and things like that on your credit report. But if they still struggle to get the money back from you, then they can ultimately take you to the court and sue you and get a court order against you. Now in England and Wales, in the UK, that judgment is called a CCJ, a county court judgment. There are slightly different names for other parts of the UK, but that is essentially a court of law saying you need to pay this money, you owe this money. And that's not good news as far as your credit rating is concerned, because it shows that you failed to meet your responsibilities, you've not paid what you promised to pay before, and it's had to go to court to secure payment. So it's certainly something you need to try to avoid. So if you actually do get a court order, we would urge you to try and deal with it as quickly as possible. And even if a judgment, if a judgment goes against you, if you pay it within a calendar month, it will actually be removed from your credit history. So then you won't need to worry about it at all. If for some reason you can't do that, then just pay it as soon as you can, and then at least your credit record will be updated to show that it has now been fully paid, and a paid judgment obviously looks a little bit better than an outstanding one, but of course ideally you don't want one at all, so that's something you need to be really careful about.
But you know, James, we're in a recession, and everybody is struggling, including companies. The government's cutting back, businesses are cutting back, and ultimately it does affect people and their lives. And some people, just can't afford to pay. So, what is your advice to them in terms of money management? What to do when they find themselves in that kind of situation, which is really, really sad. But there are people in that situation.
Well, that's absolutely right. I mean, times are tough. Many of us are struggling, and we would say that if you do find yourself struggling to make your regular payments, then don't just stick your head in the sand. Try and deal with it, face up to it, and in the first instance, speak to all of your lenders. If you're going through a difficult patch, maybe if you've lost your job and you're looking for a new one, if you let them know, they'll work with you and try and sort of work through it. If you feel like you're really losing control and you're starting to stress out about these things, then there are lots of great organisations out there that can actually help you get on top of things. Organisations like Citizens Advice, the Consumer Credit Counselling Service, National Debtline, Payplan, and these can, if necessary, start to speak to your lenders for you. And if you are struggling, they can even work out a payment plan and help you kind of distribute your disposable income around your various lenders until you get back on top of things again. So there are places you can go for help.
Some would argue that the entire, the credit system or banking institutions and stuff, they're actually set against those that are the most vulnerable in society, that are the poorest levels of poverty, and who can't afford to pay. And it's those that get penalised in terms of they've got a bad credit score, and for them to gain any kind of trust, they then have to go into the system where they're paying a very, very high interest rate. So they're being penalised double. I mean, what's your advice to those people? What happens there?
Yeah, I mean, it can be difficult these days. So many organisations do share repayment data through credit reference agencies like Experian that lenders will always come to us and carry out a check if you ask them for new credit. And if they see negative information, or even if they see no information, then the credit score that they calculate is not going to be very good, and the chances are it's not going to be good enough to actually get the best deals. So the key is, if you've got a damaged credit history, or if you've got a bit of a threadbare credit history, there's maybe not very much information about you, maybe you've not used credit much before, maybe you've come to the UK from overseas, then the challenge is to look for opportunities to get some positive information on there, to start to build up information that really supports the fact that you can be relied upon.
So how exactly do you help people with a low score?
Well, if you come to our website and get hold of a copy of your credit report and get a score like you did alongside your report, it will not only give you that rating so you can see where you are at the moment, but it will give you detailed advice, tips on the sorts of things that are helping your score, and conversely the sorts of things that you could actually focus on to try and improve your score going forward. So I say, pleasingly on your score, the negative factors, that it's blank. Because you've clearly put a lot of effort into sorting out anything that was there.
I think we've got a caller online. Ijaz from London. Take the call.
Hiya.
Hi, how are you?
Yeah, I'm all right. Thank you very much.
Thank you for calling in.
Sorry, I'm going to turn the volume off. Okay. Yeah, basically I have a question. If somebody tries to pay, he owe about £15,000 to 7 or 8 different financial institutions, and he contact anybody who can arrange out of £200 paying them per month. What is going to happen to his credit scoring? Is it going to be satisfied at the end when everything has been paid, or because of the arrangement, his credit scoring will be better than doing nothing?
Very good question, Ijaz. Thank you for that. And James?
It is a good question, yes. So I mean, if you are in a difficult situation with debt and you approach one of the sort of debt advice sort of organisations or charities to help you, they might set up, and I think this is what you're referring to, something we call a debt management plan, where the organisation actually takes your disposable income and then distributes it around your various creditors to help you pay off the debts. Now, the information that's going to be recorded on your credit report will usually show what payments you're making and how you're managing those in relation to your original credit agreement. So if you're paying a lesser amount off each month of each of your debts than you originally agreed to, then I'm afraid your credit history will show that you are falling behind with those agreements. Importantly though, the lenders involved in the plan should flag up on your credit report that you have entered into a debt management plan. So you are being proactive, trying to sort your debts out, and you hope that in terms of how that's going to affect your credit rating in the future, that lenders will take that into consideration.
I hope that was okay for you, Ijaz. If not, do call back and we'll try and help you through that. That's what we're here to do. So thank you very much for your question. But again, building up from what Ijaz has said, the minute that my understanding is that when you do enter some kind of voluntary payment arrangement, it does still have a negative effect on your report. Not as negative as not paying, because that will look 50 times worse. So, but even though it still has a negative effect, why is that for people who are trying to just try and do the best they can?
I mean, your credit history just shows what's going on, basically. It's a kind of a factual record of what you owe and how you're repaying it. So if you're struggling, your credit record is simply going to tell that story, and that's not going to be good news to any prospective lender. But to be honest, if you are in a difficult position with debt, applying for new credit is rarely going to be a sensible thing to do. So it probably doesn't matter a great deal what your credit rating is actually like at that time. Your number one priority has got to be, to get on top of your debts, to pay off what you can and try and get into a better situation. And then maybe after that time, you can come and check your credit history and see what you can do to improve things if possible.
Picking on just something you just said there, James, what's the credit search footprint? I mean, I know you just lightly touched upon it in your answer. What is that?
Well,
I'm sorry. I think we've got another caller online. Well, we'll get through these questions. We've got Sobia on the line. So, hello, welcome, Sobia.
Hello.
How are you?
Hello. Hello. I want to talk. Oh, 2 minutes.
Yes, please. We can hear you.
I want to talk about the, when your house is on. What is it called? I can't remember now. Charge, when there's a charge on the house. Can you talk about that, please? When there's a charge on the house.
Do you just want to slightly expand on that?
Yeah, I think this is a charging order. So if you owe a debt and it's not repaid and the creditor takes you to court, so you end up with a counter court judgment like we were speaking about earlier, then one way the creditor can try and secure payment now or in the future is by putting a charging order on your property. Even if it's it's not a secured debt, they can kind of register sort of officially an interest in that asset, your property, so that if you sell your house in the future, then that charging order will crop up.
Does that go on your credit report? I think was the question.
No. Is a simple answer to that. I mean, it is registered and it will affect your finances if, as I say, you sell the property and you still have the outstanding debt that the charging orders secured to represent. But no, charging orders themselves aren't registered on credit reports. But the CCJ that probably came before the charging order would be.
Right, okay, so there's a double sword coming there. So you've got the CCJ and the charging order, but only one of them is registered against you on your credit file.
That's right, the CCJ, yeah.
Okay, fab. So going back to, I hope that answers your question, Sobia. If not, like I said, ring in through again and we'll pick it up again. So thank you very much for that. And thank you, James, for answering it so well. So coming back to the question that I was about to put to you, which I picked up from your earlier conversation, was about credit search footprints.
Yeah.
Now, what does that mean?
Well, this is...
We're not going to get through today. We've got another caller online, so let's take this call. Hello, caller.
Hello.
How are you?
I'm fine.
What is your question?
I'm fine.
My question is, I was running a business in London. For 3 years it went well. And the fourth year, because of the recession, I took up the question with the Forest Walthamstow about the rates, but to cut it down because we had severe business failure. But in the fourth year, they made me bankrupt. My question is, I spent over 100,000 on the shop to build it, to run it. It was a dilapidated pub which I rented. Anyway, I wanted to ask is, I lost about £500,000. Was it fair when I've been paying rates for 3 years regularly, and the fourth year they just go and make you bankrupt? And can I claim any money back from the landlord? This is my question, really. How can they make you bankrupt just like that?
Thank you for your question, and that is quite a tough one. Can you take
It's an interesting one. I mean, I can't give sort of financial advice, and I can't really stand judge and jury over the local authority. You know, clearly it has its own policies in terms of how it's going to chase debt. I mean, generally, council tax payments don't affect credit ratings, actually, because it's not information that's shared with the credit reference agencies. But you know, as you explained there, it can ultimately be a trigger for forced bankruptcy, and clearly that does have implications for credit ratings. But obviously that's not your primary concern. It's whether it was a fair thing to do at the time, and it's not really for me to say that, because I mean, I don't know the ins and outs of the situation, but clearly, you know, you put a lot of effort into that business, and it sounds like a tough tale.
If you have any kind of disputes with the City Council, people, there are lots of agencies out there that do help you. And unfortunately, council tax is a major problem because councils can actually make you bankrupt over it. And I think our studio guest last week was also touched upon that topic as well. So really, councils and council tax, I don't know, maybe that could be a completely separate program entirely. But talking about, you know, the credit history side of things and your credit score. So if you're made bankrupt, yes, that definitely does, you know, go on your, on your credit rating and your credit score. But actual council tax late payments doesn't.
No, that's right.
You know, in terms of bankruptcy, we'll talk about this, you know, if you should get any more calls in. So, you know, with bankruptcy, why does it preclude you from, you know, certain public office jobs? You know, the bankruptcy order, even on some job applications, says, have you ever been made bankrupt? And when you're with the rest of your credit score, you know, it's like a conveyor belt. You know, after 6 years, if there's any data on there, it will, you know, fall off the system, hopefully. Yeah, yeah. But with bankruptcy, it's like it's there with you for life. And when you see that question on a job application, you know, why does it affect your entire life?
I mean, it is a big deal, because it's kind of the ultimate sort of financial bad situation, if you like, really. So,
but like this gentleman was talking, it wasn't of his doing. It was just very, very unfortunate circumstances. Some of it is obviously beyond his control. Yeah. I mean, like most situations usually are. It's not the individual that's to take blame, you know, in every single circumstances. But the bankruptcy one is one that really does hit people.
No, definitely. I mean, it's the worst thing that you can find on someone's credit report. So in terms of credit scoring, you know, it's a credit scoring disaster, really. I mean, obviously, while you're a bankrupt, you're not supposed to be applying for credit anyway. Most bankruptcies these days are end after 12 months. In terms of how long they stay on credit reports for, it's normally a 6-year thing. So in most cases, the bankruptcy would stay on there for a further 5 years and then disappear. There are exceptions to that, though. So if you break the terms and conditions of the bankruptcy, then the official receiver can actually prolong the period of the bankruptcy for up to 15 years. So it can actually stay on your credit record for longer.
Does Experian actually, you yourselves, make lending decisions? Because there's another one, you know, we've had through our followers who say this, that, you know, Experian itself, you know, perhaps they're the ones making the decisions and not the actual, you know, company itself. Is there any truth to that?
Well, we were saying earlier, there are lots of myths and misconceptions about credit checking. It's probably one of the most misunderstood businesses we have, really. And the answer to the question is no, we don't decide who gets credit. We're not a lender. But we do work with banks and lenders to help them decide, to help them make informed decisions and fair decisions. So the information on your credit report tells a story. It shows them how you've paid credit off in the past, what credit you have at the moment. But each lender will interpret that in their own ways, and they will make a decision, their decision, based on their own policies.
So let's talk about this credit search footprint. So what is that all about?
It's great we're getting so many calls, by the way. So this is an important one. It's something people worry about. So essentially, every time your credit report is accessed by a bank or a lender, or maybe by a landlord or by yourself, we keep a record on there so that you can always see who's been looking at your data, when and why. And we think that's really important. Now, in terms of credit scoring, the records that relate to you applying for credit, the so-called credit search footprints, they can affect credit scores, because if you just think about it, if you apply for a lot of credit in a short space of time, it does tell a story about your finances. It probably suggests that you're getting desperate and you're trying to, you know, sort of find credit and you're being refused by lots of lenders. So that is something you want to try to avoid. So we would say to people, do what you can to, you know, plan your credit applications and space them out so that you don't, so that your credit report doesn't suggest something that might be a concern.
Is that like no more than 6 in a year? Is there actually a figure on that?
Yeah, there's no hard and fast rule, because as we said before, each lender has its own policies, and you know, one credit report might mean slightly different things to different lenders. But you know, try not to apply for lots of things in a short space of time. You know, sort of 3, 4, 5 things, credit applications in the space of a few months is going to raise an eyebrow.
Okay. So moving on to a lot of our international viewership, and this question's, you know, in response to what you all have been putting through to me. There's a lot of companies from overseas that actually want to invest in the UK, and they're dealing with new companies, new individuals. How do companies abroad safeguard themselves whilst they're trading with a UK business? How should they assess them? How should they go about this?
Right, it's a great question. I mean, the UK is a great place to invest. It's a great place to do business. There's always been lots of innovation, great people. But I mean, it's the same story anywhere, really. If you're going to be entering into a business relationship, taking some risk, employing people, taking on tenants, you want to do your homework first. You want to go into it, you know, with all the information at your disposal. So that's where organisations like Experian can help. So we can help you sort of check out the creditworthiness of a new business you're thinking of entering into a supplier relationship with.
So international companies can actually approach yourselves as Experian and ask you to undertake a check on a UK company, perhaps?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, one of the things, we don't just measure the credit scores of consumers in the UK, we monitor businesses as well. We measure all sorts of things. So, you know, if you're going to be making an important decision, recruiting you know, a new member of staff or a tenant or a supplier, then I would suggest that you know, you come to us, check out our website, experian.co.uk, and have a look and see if there's some service we can provide to help you make a great, smart decision.
Fabulous. I hope that's all good for you people, and we're doing our best to answer as many questions as we can in the time that we've been allowed today. And no doubt we'll be bringing this program on again, because like I said, we've been inundated with, you know, lots of your questions. So moving on to, you know, further again, I mean, because today's program is about credit score, it is about your credit report. So again, focusing on why are so few people in the UK actually got an excellent credit score? What's going on in the economy?
Well, I mean, it's a good question again. I mean, we with any credit scoring system, as I say, the score that you can get with your credit report is a guide for you. Lenders have slightly different scoring systems, and they look at other information that we don't have as well. But it's always it's a ranking essentially of, you know, what you look like compared to other people. And with any kind of ranking, with any sort of league table, you're going to get people at the top and you're going to get people at the bottom. But the way things are at the moment, with lenders maybe not being as generous with the credit they're offering as they were a few years ago, You know, it's important that we all do what we can to get ourselves as high up that league table as possible. So we've got, you know, a great chance of getting the credit we want, and as we said before, getting the best deals, because credit scoring can affect what you pay for credit as well.
Again, another question that we had with one of our viewers earlier was, predominantly in the Asian community, everybody tends to do business with their family, especially when it comes to partnerships, forming relationships at a senior management level. And what they find is, like, say, suppose they're extended cousins, would they be able to safeguard themselves in requesting, like, say, a credit check for an extended member of the family before they go into a business partnership with them? Is that actually possible?
Credit checks are really tightly regulated in the UK. Our Data Protection Act here is probably one of the toughest ones in the whole world. Only lenders can actually carry out credit checks. So unless you're actually a licensed lender, you can't actually come to us and obtain a full credit report of someone else. So if you were trying to if you wanted to lend money to a friend or a member of your kind of immediate or extended family, and you wanted to check out where they were at the moment, then the only way really to do that would be to ask them to order their own credit report and then to sit down with you and go through it.
Fab. Now we're right at the end of our programme, so very quickly, James, what is your message to all our viewers watching today in terms of their credit score and credit checks? Because we've only got like a limited amount of time, and I think we're right at the end of it as always. Right.
Okay. Well, I mean, if you take away one thing from this session, hopefully it will be, you know, take some time out to understand how credit checking works, how credit scoring works. Get to know your own report and see if there are opportunities for you to build a better credit history, and that's really going to help you.
My final message to all of you guys today is it's National Fraud Prevention Week this week, and we're very lucky to have James in the studio today because it's running all week, Monday to Friday. And the main things where ID fraud actually tends to take place in the UK is when we ourselves haven't looked after our personal information. And that goes from redirecting our mail, it goes to like shredding all our personal information. If you're receiving welcome letters from financial credit card companies, or a credit card arriving that you never ordered, these are all signs of alarm bells, and you do really need to take it seriously. Credit scores, credit reports, they're an important part of our life right now, and they always have been. And right now, because we're in a recession, it really does affect people's lives really, really badly. And my advice, if you can take anything away from this program today, is do your research, go look at your credit report, check it up, and make sure that you're in the best position possible, because there's loads you can do, loads of free advice. If not, you can always email me, catch me on my Facebook, and we'll do everything we can to help you. So thank you for watching me today, and I shall hopefully see you same time next week. Bye.